Today's webinar is going to be doing physical counts in stage 100. So um, we do have half hour allotted for this, and there's certainly more to physical counts than can be presented in a half hour. But I want to kind of give you the highlights, possibly some lowlights here on dealing with a physical count. So from time to time, your um, um, you need to count your inventory and verify that what the computer thinks that you have on stock actually matches what you think you have in stock or what's actually in the warehouse. So what you do is you come in here to under inventory management, physical count worksheet, and you're presented with this screen. Now, the big question is always with physical count is how often do you count? Okay. You have to basically determine that on the size of your company, the size of your inventory, and the complexity of your inventory. I used to own, a long time ago, I owned a distribution company where um, I would authorize an hour overtime and do a physical count every on the last Saturday of every month, and we would get it done and bring in pizza for lunch and everything, and just get it all done in a couple hours. Sometimes your inventory is not conducive to be done in one sitting or one session. So you might have to do warehouse A, count by warehouse A on one day and warehouse B on another day, um, and do it that way. Then also you have occasion whereby some of your inventory can be divided up into cycles. So you can assign certain items to be cycle A, certain items to be cycle B, and so on and so forth. And then at the appropriate time, you can just do your inventory count by the cycle. Now, the cycle is bound right here on the main page of inventory, right under the weight and volume, basically almost dead center, if you will. So one way that people do is come through and you know assign their inventory items to a cycle, and then you can use always count by cycle. A long time ago, I had a customer that was a distributor of electronic parts, and he had so many. He had something like 50,000 SKUs. So he had so many items that he basically would do cycle counts 3 times a week. And his goal was to make sure that he counted everything in 1 month. So it was on Monday, they would come in an hour early and count everything. That was the A cycle. On Wednesday, they would come in and count everything at the B cycle, then C cycle. Then the following week, D, E, F, and so on and so forth. And he always made sure that it was done um, once a month to account for any variances, especially when you're dealing with small stuff like electronic stuff does have a habit of getting lost um, or misplaced or the wrong one sent out every now and then. So it's important to keep up to speed with your physical count and knowing what you have in inventory, especially considering the investment you do have in inventory. After your employees, and the inventory is the biggest investment you pretty much have. Um, I do every now and then I run into situations where customers count once a year, and that is fine if your variance is negligible. So if you count once a year and you have hardly any variances at all, then think, hey, more power to you. Count it once a year. I would let the determination of how often I count based upon the um, the variance, whether you count monthly, whether you do a cycle count, whether you do a quarterly count. semi-annual count or annual count is basically what just works best for you, and keeping that variance report to a minimum. They're okay with that? Any questions on that? Nope. Okay. If you do have any questions, please feel free to type in the questions into the chat, and then we'll address them as we go. Okay, so now we're going to get started on our physical count worksheet, and you're basically presented with this screen, report option. So, are you going to print your worksheet only? Print worksheet and freeze items only, and clear frozen items. Let's say, well, you froze your items and you did not have an opportunity to count or didn't finish or whatever. So you want to go in there and freeze them. Okay, so now, what does freezing inventory mean? So when you are getting ready to do your physical count, you want to come in there and freeze your inventory so that the system effectively takes a snapshot of what you have in inventory. And then technically, after you freeze inventory, you can go on about selling and receiving, shipping and receiving your items. However, I don't feel that's a very good idea from the perspective of what if you have to go out and recount any particular item. So I always had the policy myself of where I would uh, freeze the inventory and go count it, and then as soon as I've counted it, then I would free everything up to for business as usual. Okay, so obviously everything can be done in a flexible manner as to what works best for your situation. Okay, if you use a worksheet, then you can print out a worksheet, divide up the worksheet amongst your crew, and send them out there and count everything and fill it in as appropriate, and then bring it back to you, and you're ready to start entering the account. Okay. In some instances where you have you're using Scanco or ScanForce, and you're using scanning equipment to count your inventory, to scan the barcodes and count everything, enter everything there, then you may not need a worksheet, because everything will be on the particular handheld. Okay. So for illustrative purposes only, I'm going to do the approach using the print the worksheet and freeze the items. Okay. Over here, include inactive items. Do I really want to do that? Yeah, yes or no? Maybe. Okay. Print the quantity on hand. Okay. So what this is saying is on the worksheet, do you want to print the quantity on hand that the computer thinks you have? And this basically, there's some pros and cons to this. Excuse me. I myself am not a fan of it because human beings are lazy. I'm ranked right up there at times with laziness like that. And so if you got something that's up on a top shelf and you don't feel like climbing up to the top shelf and counting it, that situation, human beings just going to kind of look up there and eyeball it and say, "Yeah, I got it. I got that amount," and then do that. So I myself have never been a fan of printing quantity on hand onto the worksheet. Okay. If you have, I call it curve fitting. Okay. If you do have in your lot and serial items, you want to include that. And then, um, just exclude expired left here, so on and so forth. So it really goes each way. If you don't have any lot items, then it's not going to appear on there anyway. Okay. Another feature is to count the quantity counted on hand to counted to quantity on hand. Okay, well, that's once again, there's a little bit of a danger in that as to sometimes why bother doing a physical count if you're just going to automatically fill it in. Okay, then we come down to the bottom portion of this, and we can yes, we can freeze the item code by item A through item Z, if you like, or item A through item AAA. Okay, you can do by bin location. If you're using bin locations, then what you can do is um, similar to a cycle count, is go in there and say, today I'm going to count everything in row one, both sides of row one. Tomorrow I can go in and count everything on row two, things like that. So that will allow you to do something very similar to a cycle count. And it'll sort the worksheet will sort based upon the um, bin location. Description, I've never really done it by description, but I suppose if you're alphabetized and the way your warehouse is organized, you can probably do that. Warehouse, okay, you might have multiple warehouses. So um, you can say, today I'm going to count warehouse 0. Tomorrow I'm going to count warehouse uh, 1 and warehouse 2 type situation. So then some other time I can do my returns, scrap and repair, which probably are not going to have much in there. Okay. And then so I come in here and say, okay, well, give me everything's warehouse 0. Okay. Inventory cycles. Am I going to use a cycle or not? All you do is type in here the cycle you want, and it's only going to present those items. Okay. And another feature that you can do is count product line. And that's what my customer with the electronic parts did. He counted everything by product line on certain days. Okay. So from there, going to generate your worksheet. And remember, because I chose the cycle count, I've only got 4 on here, but it could have a bunch more. So you have quantity counted, initials. So your person that's going out there, fill in the amount counted and initial it so that everybody has ownership of what they're doing. Okay. Then from there, after you go out and count, you can okay. Okay, then from there, you're going to go out and count. Now, sometimes you have the ability to use, if you have count cards that you are using, they're usually pre-printed, and then you take a count card out to the bin, and it's in 2 parts, and you fill it out, you attach the count card to the bin, tear off the part you're going to return, and come back there, and they're usually numbered. So you just enter those, enter the count card entry. Okay, the vast majority of the time, you're going to do a physical count entry. And specify your warehouse in this case. And everything's here. We say B again. And you don't really have to do the B because it's going to show up everything anyway. And go over the lines, and then there's my 4 items. Now on here, it's I prefer to have the quantity on hand listed here because I can see at a glance if what they counted is accurate or close versus what they didn't count, or if it's way off on visualization here, then you know, hey, I'm going to send somebody back out to the warehouse immediately to count this. Okay, so let's make this up as we go. And let's see. There's an overs there. So you come in and count it, accept it, print it out. Proceed. Okay. So now here you have had a shortage. Add over, and everything else is done here. It's going to say, what my dollar amount is, and then I can just update this. So now at this point, you're going to get the prompt to, do you want to update the physical health variance register? So what happens here is that when you say yes to this and you're going to update the physical count, the inventory becomes unfrozen. And it's usually at this time that I prefer letting people go back to work. Recognize that it's not always feasible for the type of inventory or the workflow that you've established for your individual business. So do this basically in a manner that fits your work process. Okay, so I'm going to say yes, and it's all done. And then here, everything is going to update to the general ledger, and you update all your inventory files. Okay, now what the entry is going to be made is item maintenance, and come on. Okay, so I go over to transaction, whereas 0, and here, physical count. There's my 7 that I was short, and it makes an entry. It creates a tier all of its own. So then you have a running balance. Okay. Then you're going to have an accurate vision of what you have on a particular tier. Any questions on that? Anything? Anybody? Okay. As I said, the physical count has a lot of variations of what people can do. Once again, if you're doing the worksheet only, or freezing items, freeze items all by itself, because then you're going to have your scanning equipment take over. Do you want to print the quantity on hand on the worksheet? Do you want to default the count to the quantity on hand? Once again, I've already expressed my hesitations about that part. Then basically you're done with that. You can come in and freeze another batch if you like, and just keep moving. Now, one thing you want to do when you are getting ready to do a physical count is make sure all of your receivings have been distributed to the shelves, that they're not just sitting there on the on the receiving dock. Or that if you have not received them, then they should not be distributed yet. If you've received them in the computer, then you need to move them to to their appropriate shelves. And then all outbound shipments are done before you even start the physical count. So there should not be any receiving spending or any invoices in the queue. And then from there, the big decisions are how often do you want to do your count. Can I get a kind of a quick poll of how often people do their physical counts? If you can enter into the chat window, just how often you count your inventory. Nobody counts? Okay, see if anybody has their hands up. Okay. Nina? Susan? Seth? You have questions? No questions? Okay, if there are no questions, then I guess we can call it a day. Unless you'd like to see some alternative ways, Dan?
Can you hear me, Dan?
Yes, I can. How you doing, Dan?
Okay, good. How are you?
Doing
How are
well.
things in Miami?
Sunshine today. Oh, nope, dark clouds on the horizon, so it's soon to get stormy.
Okay, now we take inventory once a year, but we're looking at doing some cycle counting, like you're talking about. And some of this stuff may be helpful.
Okay. One thing to consider there is okay, doing inventory once a year is okay if it works for you, but sometimes if you have high volume items, high turnover items, and or you know, heaven forbid, items that have tend to grow legs, then you can specify certain items that you want to count on a more regular basis and still do your overall physical count on an annual basis.
Are you talking about items, frequently used items or high dollar items?
Either or, whatever works best for you. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
okay.
like I usually focus on my high volume items because it's quite possible that those are going to be the ones that um, are moving in and out, and people might
Yeah.
make mistakes on it.
Okay, good thought.
Okay, so yeah, and high dollar volume items, it depends on the nature of your business. If you have high dollar volume, okay, well, what's my investment? So you might want to come in there and keep track of that. If and a lot of it depends on your variances. When you do your annual count, if you have a variance and the variance is more than a couple percentage points, then by all means, um, you know, try to pick up
That's good.
items that are faster moving items where it's easier to make a mistake.
Well, we've got 5 or 6 items that account for about 50% of our volume, so that's kind of an easy decision.
Right. Okay. So, like I say, even if counting on a monthly basis is not um, feasible for you, just consider like 5 or 6 items. Okay, well, um, month one, pick one of those items and do your physical count. Month two, pick the other item, physical count, and then just kind of work them all in there. Just the idea is to keep better track of your inventory and keep a handle on it because of the sheer nature of the investment that the business has in these items. Any other questions? Thank you, Dan.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, I do thank you for attending today. And if you have any additional questions, oh, wait a second. Oh, I did have some. Okay. Um, 2 or 3 times during the year. Thank you, Leah. Once a week. Wow, Seth, your stuff is pretty move pretty fast then. Okay, Seth, do you do a complete physical count once a week? Yeah. Okay. 2 to 3 times a year. Okay. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or reach out to anybody on our team. I can be reached at dscjohn@oasisky.com. And once again, Thank you for attending and hope you all have a wonderful day.